Representative McCaul, thank you for taking some time to talk with us today.
Thanks, Ashley.
You know, you're just coming out of a briefing with the State Department. What can you tell us?
Well, the chairman and myself, Foreign Affairs Committee, we held for the entire House of Representatives a classified briefing from the Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, the Chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff, and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence on the situation at hand. And it's very volatile, very dangerous at the airport, obviously. ISIS-K killed 13 of our service members. My heart goes out to the families. This has been the worst killing of our service members in 10 years. And it's extremely dangerous, but our goal before they fully evacuate by August 31st is to get every American out of there. You know, the credo is no one left behind, and we can't allow for Americans to be left behind after our evacuation.
There are some Americans who have indicated that they want to stay, that they don't want to leave. Is the intent to force those folks out, or they're going to have a choice?
Oh, no, they're their own volition. I think some, but I think it's important, actually, when they state that statistic or make that announcement, you have to understand that a lot of them, they don't want to leave because they have family there. If we're able to evacuate them with their families, they very likely would want to leave. The problem is we're having a hard enough time getting the American citizens and families, but also the Afghan partners, the special immigrant visas, the interpreters to our special forces. Now at this point, with the airport's closed. And it's going to be very difficult to get these Americans out, much less the Afghan partners. And now, because the gates are closed, we're having to use General McKenzie CENTCOM with our joint special operations, or having to literally go in and evacuate these Americans and get them right into the airport.
You know, you and I spoke about the situation in Afghanistan just last week, and you expressed concern about ISR, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance. You said that when we closed that air base, that we, quote, lost all of our eyes and ears on the ground in Afghanistan. Was this attack evidence of that?
Yes, but we did have, because we are still at the airport and we have moved our operations in terms of ISR capability to the airport, we did see that threat coming, and I got briefed on that threat. ISIS-K, for the viewers who don't know what that is, everybody knows who ISIS is, but ISIS-K is Khorasan, is Pakistan, Afghanistan. They're a very extreme organization, more extreme than the Taliban, itself. And that threat warning was at a very high level for the past 2 days. I was not surprised when this happened, and of course, the thousands of extremists were let out of the prisons in Afghanistan, many of them ISIS-K. And so that threat is very real, and even the Taliban can't control them. In fact, they're enemies of each other. It's very interesting and strange. And so that bombing, and in fact, now there's a new high-level threat, which is why I think the August 31st date's there. The question is actually, what will be there after August 31st?
I want to ask you, because the Taliban is pushing for that August 31st deadline, and they're saying that they have the ability to run their own intelligence operations, but it's been reported that members of ISIS-K got through those Taliban checkpoints in order to get to the airport. So what does this tell us about the Taliban's ability to keep Afghanistan secure from their standpoint?
Well, there's a lot there. I think, sadly, we're letting the Taliban dictate the time and place of our withdrawal, which I think is, from an American standpoint, it's weak and it's disgraceful. And we're having to rely on the Taliban now for operational security around the airport to get Americans out. And so they have a perimeter around the airport. And for the most part, American citizens are helping to get in. Now, because the airport is shut down because of the ISIS-K threat, we're having to run these special operations missions to get Americans there. But when it comes to, remember, the Taliban looks at the Afghan interpreters, right, as the ones who worked with the Americans with what they call the infidel, and they're very much the enemy. While they can maybe assist with Americans getting in and out, I believe the Afghan partners are in a totally different situation, and the interpreters have a death sentence and a bullseye on their back.
And so in terms of, but those members of ISIS-K being able to get through those checkpoints, I mean, do you have any confidence in the Taliban's ability to control ISIS-K? I mean, since they are enemies?
No, I don't. And it's so chaotic, Ashley, at this airport that literally we had to close it down after the attack. It still hasn't reopened. This is what happens when you put your faith and trust in the Taliban. And you know, because they are mortal enemies, I don't, you know, security is going to get worse, not better. But I want to make sure that every American gets out, that we have no man left behind, no woman left behind. That is our goal right now, is that by August 3rd. The problem is, I think our NATO allies will tell you, and a lot of people I talk at state, DOD, and the intelligence community, they don't believe that we'll be able to get them out by August 31st. So that begs the question, what's going to be our presence? How are we going to help get the last American out? And we have to solely rely on the Taliban to make that happen. Now, there are some sort of rogue veteran operations, which is kind of interesting, that have vowed to go in and get the Americans out. I think this is honestly, from a foreign policy standpoint, one of the worst blunders, you know, I've seen in the way that was conducted. You can debate about, you know, staying there, but I think we could have done a much better job with the evacuation itself.
Yeah. You know, the response from President Biden was very direct. He said, "We will hunt you down and make you pay." Now, he was careful to say at a time of our choosing, but does this mean we are potentially going to send our troops right back to the place that we pulled them out of?
Well, we've heard that for 20 years, right? We're going to hunt you down, we're going to kill you. To your initial question, which you're very astute to even know what ISR means, it's intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance. It's a counterterrorism team with intelligence capabilities that can see the threat and take it out. Those are the ones that do hunt down and take out the threat. We don't have that. And what's remaining is at the airport. That's going to be gone by August 31st. The only thing remaining, you know, because we don't have a Bagram, we also can't see Russia, China, and Iran. And so the closest ISR capability we have would be in Qatar, which is about an 8-hour flight. That's way too far to conduct real-time surveillance and response to any threat, you know, out of the region. So I know the president wants to talk tough right now, but I haven't seen anything to demonstrate that he's going to actually carry forward with that threat.
So then what, in your opinion, is the appropriate response to this threat? What should we be doing?
Yeah, Ambassador Crocker, who served under Obama as the ambassador to Afghanistan, he and I wrote an op-ed in New York Times in May, warning, because the intelligence community warned that this was going to happen. They predicted everything that has happened. One was get the Americans out earlier. We should have done that. Get our Afghan partners out earlier, not down to the 11th hour, and then establish that ISR capability in a nearby country. Unfortunately, we haven't done any of that, although we are getting Americans out now. And I think the way I see this whole thing moving long term is that we have to have, while we're not going to be in country, we have to have a counterterrorism mission with this intelligence capability to respond to any future threats to the homeland. That's going to be our vital mission moving forward. Will be ISIS, Al-Qaeda, possibly the Taliban, anything to attack Americans at the homeland, and also our NATO allies, European allies, which are much closer to Afghanistan.
Tell us what's being done now to ensure the safety of our troops and those Americans still in Afghanistan while they're working to evacuate people.
So they have a dual mission. Right now is to evacuate. retrograde. They call it retrograding, and that they will use 6,000 troops for what we have 5 days left. The majority of that time is going to be the military winding down its operations while still trying to save Americans. So you have our troops winding down, evacuating, and then you got our Joint Special Operations Command going out and bringing Americans to the airport by air to get them out of country. And that's got to happen in 5 days. That's a tall order, and by many experts I talked to, almost an impossible order to fulfill.
You mentioned the airport being closed. I'm assuming out of safety concerns. How are we keeping those troops that are still there, those Americans that are still there, safe?
Well, they are their own security, and they are there for security of the airport. I think what I wonder is, will diplomats be able to maintain any presence in country? But the fact is, we've abandoned the embassy, and I don't know how our diplomats could stay at the airport and still maintain a diplomatic presence. We do know the Taliban, they want legitimacy. They do want some diplomatic recognition. The difficulty there is the United States prepared to acknowledge the Taliban as a legitimate government in Afghanistan when we've fought them for 20 years?
Yeah. Give us some final thoughts on what will happen next.
I think you're going to see a lot of chaos. I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. You'll probably see another ISIS-K attack, either at the airport or elsewhere. You're going to see these JSOC operations to save Americans, putting themselves in danger, and God knows, hopefully, I pray that none of them will get killed. We want to make sure every American gets out of there and not kept behind enemy lines. Then we evacuate. Then you got a very dire situation in a country that we've been for 20 years. And I think the only thing left that we can do is ensure that we never have a 9/11 staging ground that we did 20 years ago.
Representative McCaul, we thank you for your time today.